on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Click live stream tab or watch us on live smart television, YouTube, WCEG Network. I'm Damita Chatman, your host for the Take a Stand for the next hour, where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG Talk _radio at WCEG Network. Last but least, this is this disclaimer. The topics and opinions are those of the show hosts and guests and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to all that came out. First of all, I want to thank, I'm going to start with Dr. Adrian. I met her years ago in the school system, and she was just awesome. Daphne Jordan, Mr. William Edwards, Miss Miley, just met her today. Miss Gail Dean, Kimberly, Dove, Miss Warren, and Pickett. Thank you guys for coming out. We're going to talk about the school concerns and so forth. What's going on in our school system? What is some solutions and that we can get things on the road? First, I want to ask, I'm going to go with the school board members. I'm going to start with Gail Dean. What can you do as a school board member to help more on the South Side?
Well, I think that one of the things that we can all do as board members is listen to our community, listen intently, and in representing our community to the rest of the members on the board. And for me personally, I'm in a unique position because I represent East Point, Hateville, College Park, a little slice of the city of South Fulton, and Sandy Springs. So taking the concerns from the community to the board is one of the biggest things that we can do, most important things that we can do as board members. And in doing that, that is how we are able to actually bring the issues that are from the community to the board, the superintendent, and the staff. One of the things that we also do as board members, and I know that the other board members on here with me do as well, is respond to the community. So when there are issues, I pride myself, and I know that the other board members do, is being open and honest and transparent with those individual community members who contact me. So I think for me, representation really means listening and taking that information to the board where it can count in terms of improvements and changes. So thank you so much for the question. And
thank you. Thank you, Miss Kimberly. I'm going to give you that same question.
As Ms. Dean said, one of the things we can continue to do is listen to our community, but also make sure that we are reviewing the information that is brought to us. We are brought reports. We can go into the schools, listening to some of our administrators and to our community members, and make sure that those specific questions are addressed. Specifically, if there's something around discipline, what is our current discipline policy? Is it something that our board needs to look at again, as well as what is the process with our student code of conduct? So that's an example of how we can engage with the community and then bring it to the board. Once those are looked at, and then at the board table, the discussions between our board members, action can be made. And that normally takes a 1 month or a 2 month cycle, depending on what it is.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Warren?
Absolutely.
You want to answer that question, Ms. Warren?
Absolutely. I think as my fellow board members talked about is the process in which making sure that we're bringing things to the community. And I think above all of that is making sure that people are informed. A lot of times when you're talking about the schools and you're talking about things that you want changed or that you have concerns about, many times there are already things put in place. And so a large part of our job is to make sure people are informed and people have the right information so that parents and community members can make the right decisions. And I think that really comes to how well all of us get in our communities. And I think we do a great job just making sure we're hearing things and that we're being responsive, so that people know what's happening and they're just not thinking that we're sitting and having meetings, and they don't know about all the great things that are happening behind the scenes.
All right, thank you. I'm going to ask Dr. Adrian this. Dr. Adrian, do you think that it should be more therapy offered to the schools?
Thank you, first of all, for having me, Damita. As you said, we met a long time ago. Actually, when I was running for school board, had no intention of doing that when I moved to South Fulton, but did it anyway. As an educator for over 20 years at the elementary, middle, and high school level, but as someone who is a psychotherapist, so my background is mental health and has been, this is my 28th year of practicing.
Awesome.
So 30 years ago, I was saying to educators, you don't have it right. And until you focus on the mental health issues that children are coming to school with, you can't just think that you can give them a free and reduced lunch and that they're going to learn ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. And so I think that what COVID-19 has certainly illuminated that we got a lot of mental health issues going on that have always been present, but because we had to get quiet and still, it has illuminated just how many issues we have. And you got a lot of kids and families out here who are struggling. And so until we pay attention and focus on the mental health aspect, we're going to still continue to struggle in terms of education because it's about more than just pedagogy. And so we have to give some attention to the whole child and the whole family if we truly want to have success in kids.
Yeah. And let me ask you a question because I've always thought this, and maybe I'm wrong. This is kind of like a quiet subject in the Black community. Mm-hmm. Dealing with therapy. Do you agree with me?
Oh, yeah. I mean, our counterparts are the ones that typically will seek out counseling. Although what I am proud of, as a veteran, I consider myself a veteran at this point, 28 years in, you do have more Black people who are starting to seek counseling. And so I think that because of the celebrities who are out here who are saying that they are suffering and that they are having concerns and issues and need support, you have more people who are willing to normalize it and say, you know what, maybe it's not such a bad thing. Maybe I can benefit from it. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question before I go to the next question. What age do you think a child should start seeking counsel if they need it?
Well, it depends on what's going on. So, if you're dealing with a child that has experienced a level of some sort of trauma, then I would suggest that as soon as there is trauma present, that you need to get the child some support and allow them to go and seek counseling. But counseling is one of those things that everybody can benefit from because everybody's got some junk in their family, in their upbringing that has, either produced a weed or a flower. And so at some point, everybody can benefit from it. But when I get parents that call and they're calling about children, who are under 5 years old and they're having behavior problems and there's an absence of a disability, then that's when I want to have some conversations with parents because sometimes it's a parenting issue as opposed to an issue with the child.
Okay, thank you so much. You're welcome. I'm going to go with Miss Jordan. Miss Jordan, as a parent and a community leader, what can you tell us, where's the need in the school system that's needed?
That's a very complex question because I just returned my son from private school to public school. And I would say as an active parent, a previous PTSA president that was very engaged in my 20-year-old son's life, and I'm still engaged in Noah's schooling as well. I think the the main things that are needed now are discipline. Parents need to be held accountable by way of outside of these code of conduct. And I'm still reading through the code of conduct, and I will be very honest with you, it is very complex. Pretty much making the statement that you should not engage in gang activity. What's the consequence? That is not very specific in the code of conduct. And so from my perspective as a very engaged community advocate here in South Fulton, been out here since 2010, children have changed, which means parenting has changed, which means the school buildings and resources and systems that are in place, they need to change by way of not just waiting until a parent emails you about an issue that has made it to the news, and then you want to have a knee-jerk reaction. Actually, it was a problem before it made it to the news. And from a parental perspective, my biggest concern right now, Damita, is I have a son that was thriving as an AB student. He's been exposed to way too much. And so it has caused me to do temperature checks every single day. Wow. It caused me to remind him from whence he came and who his parents are, what we will not tolerate, and even work with Ms. Miley here on some things that have occurred. And my background from a school perspective, I'm a former teacher, so I used to teach children with autism. I come from a perspective of, I understand what teachers are up against. My biggest issue right now that I have with the school system is that it is a system that's sort of working in a silo. It's really not working, in my opinion, based on the evidence and information that I have. They're not working with the systems that are in place, like the juvenile court systems that has resources for them. Families First has resources for the school systems. And it may be that some schools have these programs in some of their schools, but why not make it available to all of them? And I can go on and on and on. So I think, just to answer your question, it has been sort of frustrating trying to live through a pandemic, number one, okay? Because we first have to talk about the elephant that's in the room. We are still in a pandemic.
Absolutely.
But we're also in an epidemic, in my opinion, where we have children that don't know their place, okay? And a school is a place that allows all children. I get that, but it should also have a standard of behavior that it will tolerate and that it will accept and make sure that it is creating a safe learning environment for everyone, including the staff and teachers involved.
I totally agree. I'm going to go with the principal Miley, but I'm going to, you hit on something there, Daphne, and Dr. Adrian cannot agree. Remember back in the 2005, we had this awesome principal, Dr. Adrian, and she had standards. She didn't tolerate too much, and I can call the school out at Westlake. Things wasn't tolerated over there. Do you agree with me, Dr. Adrian?
Oh yeah, we had some awesome leadership, and I'm in a unique position here because, again, I've been at the elementary, middle, and high school level as an assistant principal and a counselor. So I know the walk of an educator from an up close and personal perspective, but your building leadership is critical to the success of your school. And your building leadership has to be supported by your community. And so, it reminds me of the statement that Deion Sanders made about the NFL, and I'm a football fanatic, so I will bring up football in every conversation. But, he said that with what we have going on inside of the NFL and the conversation that's being had, you can't continue to just hire people at the middle level down and think that there's going to be a change. The change has to come from the top down.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then I'm going to go on to Dr. Smiley, but I know back in 2005, and I'm going to talk about class of 2009, this principal didn't allow kids to come in that school with their pants hanging down. You didn't see parents with bonnets on their head. It was a standard. Now, and what happened was some of the community folks didn't like the standards that she was putting forth. Do you agree with me, Dr. Adrian? So they kind of raised a little Cain. I think we as parents and stakeholders, we need to bring some of that back to the forefront, because I went over to one school and I was just amazed to see parents going to school with pajamas and bonnets on their head. I was just blown away. You shouldn't even allow them in the school system door. That's just me.
I want to add, Miss Chapman, can I add one thing? Because I'm a parent also. I agree with what Daphne said and also what Dr. Adrian said. And one of the things I want to reiterate is that everything starts with leadership. It starts with what you allow and what you do not allow. And one of the things that I've seen in the last, my oldest son is 21. He attended Westlake, and I have 3 smaller children. One of the things that I've seen is that the school will set a standard. The parents will come and they will cause a conniption because standards are in place. I'm going to give you an example. Your child engages in behavior that's unbecoming, they get suspended, and the parents have a fit because there is a standard. One of the things I think the community really needs to understand is that we have to support our leaders. Teaching is hard. I taught for a long time. I went into administration. And one of the things that I see right now, and the pandemic has just amplified it, is that there is a lot of our building leaders are doing double the work. And the mental needs of children, of staff, and of the community are showing up at our footsteps. And so as we as a school community, you know, we say, hey, here's Christ 180 for we see these things with children, is that we need the parents to adopt a philosophy of supporting the school. If we have a child that's fighting all the time and we offer a service, you know, a parent has the opportunity to say, I don't want that for my child. We have to have some personal accountability within ourselves. And these are great conversations to start those things. But we also need to remember that everybody has to be held to that standard. It's not just the schools, it's not just the principals, it's not just the teachers, it's your child at home. I had a conversation, I have 2 middle schoolers with Miss Miley over at Sandtown, and the amount of things that kids do on social media when they're at home is scary. And one of the things that our administrators have to do, you come into school, you're all about teaching and learning, and you have to spend 2 hours on an incident that happened during the night before. And so I just want parents, when you're hearing this and you're listening to this, is, you know, my children have parental locks on things. They cannot get on things at certain hours. And I think more and more parents are starting to realize the effects some of this is having on schooling. I just had a community meeting last week at Langston, and some students were on the panel. And one of the things they talked about was just how isolating bullying is and some of the things that they see. And one little girl said, she was the class president at Langston Hughes. She said, honestly, a lot of things happen at home that people aren't talking about and the school is having to deal with. So that's just something to think about. And that's just something, you know, just in my 20 plus years in education, every year it gets more and more. And I think we really have to have, and it's not blaming, it's not telling a parent you're not doing your job. Even if we think that, it's saying, if you don't watch your child on social media, not only can your child get into this, but there are other consequences. And just like, and to what Ms. Jordan said about partnering, we just had a really productive meeting a couple of weeks ago about some things in place for kids. And so just to understand that and to advocate for that, because parents, the administrators need you. They are begging for you to come in and for you to help. That's all I have. Sorry.
I'm gonna go. I see Dr. Adrian's hand up. I'm gonna go to Principal Miley, and then I'm gonna go back to Dr. Adrian. Miss Miley.
Yes, so thank you all for having me. It's my pleasure to join you and share my experiences from the seat of Sandtown. I have served as a building principal now. I'm approaching year 9. 3 years at the middle school and then previously at the elementary school. And I think what's interesting as I listen to the conversation and the feedback is really being able to put yourself in a building principal's role. While we own our building and our students and support our teachers, our number one job is safety and a conducive learning environment. And what we find that we are, and I'm going to speak on behalf of principals, what we are most challenged with is parental support. right? So we don't teach kids the behaviors that we see. We don't teach kids that fighting, I'm going to use fighting as an example, is a way to resolve conflict. They come to the middle school at ages 11, 12, and 13, seeing this as an option. And so at the school, we have to put things in place to try to combat things that we don't control, which is home life, access to social media, what kids are exposed to. And so we're not the end all be all. We can't resolve all of that. And I definitely agree with Dr. Adrian in regards to, we are also dealing with a high level of mental health. And it's not new. This is not anything new. It is just definitely at the forefront because of the pandemic. Some of our students are dealing with major mental health issues. And when you combat that with discipline, we find ourselves in a very unique position, because while we are in authority, we are also under authority. So while we can encourage and have our rules and our processes, and like you said, holding our students accountable, I can just share my most recent experience. When I'm in the front office, I see anyone, and as I'm walking through the building, when I see students with their pants down, the first thing I say is pull your pants up. You're in school. This is an educational institution. But please bear in mind, they left out of the house with those pants down. They left out of the house with some of the things that we are receiving. So our number one job is a conducive learning environment and safety. That has to be met before we can go into teaching and learning. And so if that is encompassing a large majority of our time, then it takes away from the conducive learning environment. And we have students who may not come from that perspective or background now being influenced, as Ms. Daphne Jordan said, by the things that they're seeing in the public school setting.
Oh, I agree. It started at home. I'm gonna go to Dr. Adrian.
So I am so thankful to be a part of this conversation, because I almost bagged out on Damita because I'm recovering from surgery, not even a week out, but I'm thankful that I am here, because I know that I am probably going to ruffle some feathers here of educators, but I guess that's my presence for being here.
Yes.
Because these are not new conversations that we are having. And so the fact that 30 years ago, I was the Lone Ranger as someone who was not a trained educator, trained as a mental health professional, saying, we don't have it right. And it still sounds, first of all, education is the most political beast that I have ever known, which is why I was always thankful that I was in private practice. And I knew that on any day, I could walk away from there. I was in everybody's leadership program. Every superintendent that I worked under wanted me to be a building principal. And I kept saying, that's not for me. Because if we are truly about the needs of children, then we have to understand that parents don't keep the best part of the child at home and send the worst to the schoolhouse. And so educators, most educators have what I call middle-class value attitudes. And until you are willing to change your mindset and understand that parents sometimes don't know how to train their children because they've not received the training. We're all a product of our upbringing and our experiences. So I always worked in Title I schools for 20 years. And I have kids who are doctors and lawyers and a sitting judge, a gospel artist, because I did not look at those kids and have the expectation that it's all on the parents. When kids come to school, they're there 8 hours a day. So teachers have a greater influence sometimes than the parents. And I know, y'all, times have changed. We got social media, we got we TikTok, and we doing all this stuff that my 31, 30, 25, and 23-year-old were not exposed to. But the reality is we've always had something to contend with. I'm sure that Mr. Edwards can tell you about something that was going on in his generation where people were saying, we got to get rid of these kids. We got to separate them. We got to do this. We got to do that. At some point, we've got to get to the root of the issue. We can't just think that by putting kids in kindergarten and pre-K, that alone solves issues. When you got kids whose families don't have lights, or they're dealing with abuse or incarcerated parents, those are issues that have to be addressed. And so I don't really know what the solution is, except for the fact that it can't just be about pedagogy, and that it is the responsibility of a school board to say, we got to give the support to the building principals to make sure that, because y'all, a regular school counselor is not trained like me. That was the other thing I used to say, because everybody wanted me as their counselor. And I would say, this is not how school counselors are trained. I am different. I am a trained, licensed therapist. And that's the difference. So I just had to say that, y'all, because the conversation is rich, but at what point do we move out of the problem into a real solution?
Thank you. I'm gonna go with Mr. Pick. Hold on, I'm gonna
Ms.
go
Chapman,
with,
can I?
No, wait a minute, hold on.
hold on, excuse me, hold on. I want to go with, I want to give, before you guys go back, I want to give Mr. Edwards and Mr. Pickett a chance to speak, and then I'll go back. Mr. Pickett, you are a mentor for the young men. What can you tell me, what have you seen dealing with the young men?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. And I will tell you that I'm seeing something a little differently now that here I am now in my second week as the new executive director for the RISE schools here, which is a Fulton County school. And what I'm seeing, and I've been listening to the conversations, but I think what I think is heavily important is that we have to continue to empower the male instructors in the buildings to be more than just disciplinarians. And I think what happens is we put so much emphasis on the male instructors to be disciplinarians, and you have to understand that there are many young men in this school who may not receive a male be a disciplinarian if that's not what they receive on a regular basis. We have forgotten that men can also be nurturers, and we expect our women to always be nurturers and our men to be disciplinarians. But if you don't have that, at home, then what are you actually doing? And so what we've tried to do here, and I appreciate the fact that we do have I would definitely say almost 60% of our staff are men, 60% of our staff are men, but what we encourage them to be are nurturers. You know, we're not trying to make you be disciplinarians in our institution. And so for me, that has to be a paradigm shift in our institutions. And that also means having to have those conversations, I think, even with our parents. That for me, as a mentor and as someone who has been, now mind you, I also want to be very clear, I'm probably the youngest on the panel here, but I've been in education 16 years on every level, from a parent professional all the way up to the role I sit in now. And it's not changed. You know, it has to be, if you're going to have men, particularly Black men, in your institutions, you have to provide them the autonomy and the space to be nurturers and not assume that what they have to be is a disciplinarian. But I also, if I could really quickly, want to go back and state, as we were talking about the standards, one of the things that I've had to realize, definitely coming into the role I sit in now, is you have to be the standard bearer in your building. So what I've had to do is change the paradigm shift of our instructors, because we're asking our students to hold a standard, and we're not holding our staff to the same standard that we're holding our teachers to. So what I'm now doing is I've just re-implemented a new culture shift called R2TO. So it's R, the number 2TO, which is rise to the occasion. And there are 4 affirmations that our instructors now have to do. I will come to work every day on time. I respect myself and all others. I will come to school prepared to teach and learn, because you can't say that you're lifelong learners and you're not learning. And lastly, I will not allow my outside experiences affect my inside environment, because when we start bringing our outsides in, we've now just shifted our young people for the rest of the day. You're expecting the young people to come in a certain mindset, but you also can contribute to some of those issues that we have. And so I think it becomes a paradigm shift on everybody's part to do that. So yes, we got to hold our school board accountable to those things and resources. We have to make sure that we're holding our parents as well. But we also have to make sure from the back end that we are setting a standard and a culture that is conducive to a learning environment where our kids can learn. If we're not setting that up, then we're failing them before they even enter the building. And so for me, that becomes the areas where I see that we can serve a purpose. And as a mentor and as a male educator, those are areas that I want to see us continue to do, making more men again, nurturers and not necessarily have to be the disciplinarians.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna go with Miss Blackman. She's a teacher over at Banks and Hughes. I want to ask you, what are your experience dealing with, because you're over in high school, what can you bring to the table in helping our young kids over at Langston Hughes as a teacher? What do you think, Ms. Blackman?
Thank you for having me, first of all.
Thank you.
And I'm a teacher at Banneker.
Okay,
And
I'm sorry, Banneker. Okay,
it-
sorry about that.
it's okay. And previously, I also taught at Woodland Middle School. And what can we, or myself as a teacher, bring to the students that I encounter with? Basically, just making sure that I'm trying to form those relationships, supporting those students. Like Dr. Adrian said, we do see our students almost sometimes more than their parents do. And so reaching out to them, not just about the content, but making sure that they know that they have somewhere to go if they need something, they have somebody to reach out to, serving as a liaison for our students to make sure that they understand that they're not in this thing alone. I think that as teachers, we have to take some of the accountability that everybody is talking about, because we are dropping the ball in some areas as far as forming those relationships with our students. We choose to work in our schools, especially in South Fulton, where we know that we have a population that may be lacking some things when they come to our buildings. But as educators, that's part of our role now. Our roles are constantly evolving. And we can't just come into the classroom expecting to teach our content, our ELA, our science or social studies, without first being able to reach our students. And so the relationship part is very, very, very important. So that's what I would, how I would answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards, back in the day, you had a program that went wide on Oprah, and you had the truancy program. Would you like to see that coming back to the school system, Mr. Edwards?
First, let me say thank you all. I've been listening here for a few minutes, and I've learned one thing, that all of y'all know what the problem is. No doubt. Now, the second thing would be, how do we accomplish, or how do we get things done? Dr. Pickett, thank you, my brother, because I believe that to be a man, you must see a man.
Absolutely.
And I do believe that, and thank you for all you're doing up at Rise. Yes, there's a lot of things, and I think we got to get it even a little broader. You know, people pay taxes every year, and they always talk about the money they pay in school taxes. But guess what? You're also paying Fulton County taxes. And as we see to talk about what we don't have in terms of mental health, it is the job of the county government to adhere to mental health. And I say all of that because, you know, the solutions must be embraced by everybody, not just the ones in the building. It has to be embraced by everybody. The community, look, the city government, the county government, because if people always talk about the money we pay in their taxes, but you're not utilizing all that you need to utilize for your money. Yes, I came up with, as you know, when I did those programs, Ms. Chapman, I was president of a merchants association. But we felt that we need to improve our community and our schools, because these are the people who spent their dollars with us. And so to give it back. So we had an out of school suspension program. We had a truancy program. We had a program called the Wraparound Collaborative. We had a parent university. And what I'm trying to say is, yeah, you heard me the first time, this was a what? A merchants association, not a school or another collective. We have to get engaged, and we have to get involved in a significant way. We can sit here and talk about the problems all we want to, but in a significant way. Let me just give you one classic example. And Ms. Blackman, you can follow me on this one. You know what happened at Banneker, okay? And what I heard was awesome, going through the media, coming from the community, coming from everybody. You would think that Banneker High School was a war zone and things was happening over there that, you know, we had no control over. Mm-hmm. And as I went to Banneker, I was there the day of the other incident, when I went to Banneker and I talked with people and I found the truth. If you notice on my website or my Facebook, I turned and told the truth. Because let me tell you what you were doing. You were saying that somebody shot up in a house in the community. Well, that community was South Fulton. Why would you say that when we're trying to build the image of our communities? If it's correct, then I'm fine. But if it's a lie, don't say it.
Amen.
And so just that week, the kids were gang members. Okay, so now you got shooting up in neighborhoods and you got a shooting done by gang members. It was not true. I had each one of those kids investigate. None of those kids was affiliated with any gang. It was since an incident that happened and two juvenile folks took it too far. We got to watch what we say. If you go to Banneker High School, when I went there, I passed by, and I put this out, I passed by acknowledgments, 20 or 30 of them for kids who had completed an enrichment program. And I said one thing, nobody said anything about those 20, 30 kids that were outside. You would have thought that they were tombstones. You would have. So we as a community, we as a school, I'm visiting every school now. I think have y'all know that. I know Ms. Dove and I know Ms. Warren knows. I'm visiting every school. I've visited about 4 now, and I see what I see. And I report back to Mr. Looney. I report back to everybody as to what I see. And to Banneker's credit, they did what they were supposed to do, and they did it very well, and they did it outstanding.
Thank you.
But no one will say that.
And thank you. I'm gonna go with Miss Blackman got her hand up. But let me say this. I think also, Bill, and you touched on something, we're gonna have to hold the news reporters accountable for the lies that they put out. Often we get we don't show where our kids getting the scholarships. The young lady that came out of Wesley, they're always trying to spin the narrative. I think we need to hold them accountable and start calling them out on their lies also. I'm gonna go with Blackman, Warren, and Jordan.
Just to piggyback off what Mayor Edwards just said, we do have some wonderful things here happening at Banneker. In reference to those signs that you see in the front of the building, that's our BCAP students. Those are students that have excelled and they have shown leadership in our building, and we're nurturing them, and we have different programs set up for them, and we have programs set up for all of our students. We have a Posse Scholar. We have a excellent awesome 3DE program here. The Posse Scholarship pays for full tuition. And so we have so many different things that are happening here that if the way that the rhetoric that has come out over the incidents that have happened, and they are tragic, and we understand that. We understand the gravity of what happened and what we need to do. But we feel like we're not getting any type of recognition other than the sensationalism that comes along with those types of incidents.
Thank you. I'm gonna go to Mrs. Jordan.
Okay, and so just to kind of come back with what Mr. Edwards was saying, it's my understanding that parents called the media. So, you kind of have to understand, you can't stop a parent from making a phone call that they want to make to the media and however they want to spin it. And let me kind of help you all see things from a different context. I just attended, along with a nonprofit that I'm associated with, we just attended it was called a gang human sex trafficking awareness event. It was by one of the DAs in a different county. And I just want you all to know that this is one of the biggest concerns that I have with what's happening right now. And that is the things that have changed since I was at Frederick Douglass High School in 1990 is that I didn't have a cell phone at the school. Okay. I had to go to the front office to call my mother if I needed to, or I needed to go to the payphone. If the schools don't take these phones out of these kids' hands or make them drop them off in a bucket, your kids are being recruited by gang members. I'm just trying to let y'all know, by some emojis, okay? There are certain emojis that kids are texting to one another. They're being recruited. Parents don't even know it. I mean, it blew my mind. I'm not going to go into further details because I'm actually going to do a session in Safer Communities where I am bringing an education and awareness to this, because I think it's important for parents to understand your cell phones are tricking your kids out. Okay. I know what I just said. I meant what I just said. They're taking your kids out of your nice, pristine homes, moms and dads. And because you've allowed them to babysit your kids, okay, it is causing them to be recruited in other means, forms, and fashions that you have no understanding and awareness of until I receive a message inside of Safer Communities that says such and such is missing. Please help us find them. Everything that we're talking about today, whether we want to admit it or not, it stems from the community. And everything that glitters ain't gold. Okay, that's one thing that I had to help people understand out here when we brought Safer Communities to the forefront is crime ain't pretty, but you can't fix a problem until you admit you got one. Okay, so we know we got a problem in the schools. I'm also going to end, because I don't know when I'm going to get the microphone back, but I just checked my email because I'm an email queen. And I've emailed some of the school board representatives in 2018, with the exception of Mrs. Warren, and I'm still waiting on an answer. So if you all say that you're in a position to respond to the public who have voted for you or put you in office, you all have some work to do. You all have a lot of work to do. I've emailed, I may not have called, but an email deserves a response. It is a written form of communication. And I'm talking to the school board members because you're elected. You're not just walking into these positions. You have to have meetings, not just to bring us information that's on your agenda. Right. But it should be information in response to what some of the community has brought to your attention, needs answers and addressing before it's to the news media. And I'll just end it on this, Damita, because I know you want your microphone back and I'm about to give it to you. I want to see a cell phone policy in place that governs these cell phones, because teachers who have master's degrees and bachelor's degrees, even associate's degrees, should not be spending their time dealing with this.
I agree. I totally agree with you. I'm gonna go with Kimberly, and then I'm gonna go to Warren. Kim.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I just wanted to respond to several of the comments. So as an elected official that represents the community, when we receive email messages that are sent to the group, just so everyone knows, you respond and you add the superintendent. The superintendent responds, and then we are in the background working towards making those things happen. We reach out to you. I know I've reached out to you before as well, Ms. Jordan, to respond to some of your questions. But before the Banneker incident happened, just please be aware that we were already in the process later in last year to bring about new CSAs, new security officers in our middle and high school. So we were working towards that, as well as bringing on additional social workers. So that was not a reflective response. It was a planned response on how we could deal with the challenges that we have right now today. Additionally, our superintendent is working with our DA and our sheriff's office to bring about some help in partnering with Fulton County Schools. Additionally, we are working with a group called Second to None, and Ms. Dean and I attended this first roundtable discussion about how our parents can be involved and then what we could do in the school to identify. One thing I found very interesting is that a Banneker High School student said to me, she said, Ms. Doug, we know who these students are. So if we know who these students are, is there something we can do to ask these kids if they've experienced trauma in their neighborhood or at home when they first come in, do they have to go to first period? or is there something else that they can do? Additionally, you talk about the teachers, and then what about the teacher response? Is that teacher response that you saying that I want to change the dynamic when it comes to discipline? There are definitely some situations that warrant a strong response. But then there are situations where if you know a kid is a knucklehead, are you deemed to make them not go to school anymore? Or are you just going to say, hey, Coconut, let me find out what I'm going to do? And these are the conversations that we're actively having that are being implemented in our school system and in our district. And also in the middle school area, we've seen an uptick, as you guys know, an uptick in everything that's going on that's discipline-wise. But please know that as an elected representative of Fulton County Schools, I am 100% engaged. Sometimes those solutions require us to continue to have those conversations. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I just got a message, so I'm gonna go with school board Deans, Edwards, and Warren. Since Gail Dean, tell me, what can you bring to the table to kind of help these solutions and bring a solution to some of these problems? And let me say this, Gail Dean, we got to get it out there because people have been saying you don't represent the South Side. So could you kind of clear that up?
Well, I think that one of the things that some of the folks may say that may not see, and that is how we vote to support various different initiatives that relate to the schools in the different parts of the district. And I know that you could talk to both of the other school board members here, but we have a very strong alliance in supporting the initiatives that come to the school district for issues that are happening on the South Side. I just want you to know that the issues that we talk about here are not just South Side issues. These are issues that affect the entirety of the school system and frankly are affecting the nation. So the strength that I bring to the board is to be able to talk to the rest of the board about issues that are happening in all parts of the county. And I can't tell you how strong that is. It is extremely strong for South County. So having that alliance and understanding what happens on both ends of the county is really very, very positive for the issues that we bring forward. If you understand, we vote on everything that happens relative to budget. And to be able to budget, for instance, the 10 CSAs that we just approved in the budget, none of those are going to North County. Just so you know that. And and for instance, the program that we just put in place that Ms. Dove mentioned at Tri-Cities and the Tri-Cities cluster is specifically for that cluster. And that took a vote of the entire board for those dollars to be allocated. So I don't understand sometimes why people say that. I've got the largest physical district other than maybe Miss Warren's, but mine is pretty much separated by the city of Atlanta in terms of physicality. And I go to many, many things. In fact, I wonder if any of y'all are going Friday night to Tri-Cities to see the play. I can't wait. I know Ms. Dove is going. It's really going to be a fabulous presentation. So I hope all of you get a chance to come. But I think I've answered it, Ms. Chapman. I think that there's something that having a split district really does add to both ends of the county.
Thank you. We're going to go with Mr. Edwards. And then I want you to think about this, having our graduations and instead of going to Gwinnett, having them at the Wolf Creek Amphitheater or the Georgia Congress Center. Think about that. Mr. Edwards.
Just a couple of things I really want to say. And number one is, I would like to see us get back at another date and another time to talk about solutions. And not so much of the problem, but what solutions are we going to give to them? I think that's vitally important. And Dr. Adrian, I think you're absolutely correct when you talk about leadership. One of the things that I found out in my quest to go around to see for myself is that, and I've shared this with my colleagues on the school board, and that there is somewhat of a leadership problem. And I think that we need to get to that. I asked the question of all times is, why is that when we lose a principal, that we go out and have to go to other cities and other places to find a replacement for that principal? When I look back, Dr. Adrian, in one school, I had a sister principal who's been there 20 years. That's a problem for me. And I think that if we're going to have assistant principals, that they should be educated to meet the qualifications or the certifications, whichever you may have, to become a principal. Now, lastly, I'll say this and I'll get off. When I talk about the broad reach of what schools do you know if you have bad schools in your city and your community, whatever you want to call it, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You have little to no economic development. Nobody's going to move to a city where they feel that their child can't be educated. And we talk about, well, why don't we have this and why don't we have that? Well, we have to work on our communities. So when something happens at our schools, if it ain't, don't put the negative part out there, because if it ain't true, don't do that. Because when you're in New York and you want to move to South Fulton, Georgia, you're going to get on that computer and you're going to see two things: the crime rate, and you're going to see the schools. So when you ask why we don't have any Fortune 500 people moving south, I'll let you answer the question based on what I just told you. So I'm looking for solutions. I'm still out here. Ms. Warren knows it. Ms. Dove knows it. Looney knows it. I'm still out here, but I'm here trying to find solutions. I'm here not trying to condemn anybody, but when an issue comes up that needs attention, I will speak to that issue. And so I will continue to do that. I only got about 100 more schools to go to, right, y'all? But I'm gonna try to make them all. Thank you so much for having me too. And Miss Miley, you're doing a great job. I appreciate you. Okay.
Yes, we gonna go over 10 more minutes. We're gonna get off at 3:10, but I'm gonna go with Miss Warren because she's gonna have to get off. Come on, Miss Warren.
Yeah, and guys, forgive me, I'm in my car. I'm at an emergency dentist appointment with 3 of my children. I want to respond to this, but I want to preface it with this. We can love our schools and we can criticize our schools. As long as we're doing the work that it takes to make sure that all of our schools have what they need. For me, it's personal. I have 3 children in the school system right now. Every decision that I make, it affects them. Me and Ms. Miley have had this conversation. I have with my fellow board members. I have kids in the schools, and so I see things. One of the things that I want to encourage people who are listening to this is that in our community, we always have a lot of people who will bring up the wrong, but you cannot find them on any day of the week to address some of the things that we need. And that's a problem. And I don't know, and I don't know if people really understand that. I'm gonna give you a prime example. Langston Hughes High School graduates more students with associate's degrees than any school in metro area. Creekside High School, which is in the city of South Fulton, has arguably, in my opinion, and I could be biased, the best agricultural program in the metro area. People come from across the state to learn from our instructors. Westlake High School is taking kids to Harvard, MIT, Columbia. I say that Tri-Cities has a phenomenal performing arts department. The 3DE program at Banneker is awesome. But a lot of times in our community, we spend time on things we don't like, and we convict the schools before we are even in there. If we want to talk solutions, in 2016, when I was upset with some things with my child, we formed a nonprofit, South Fulton Parents for Education. And so when you find us on King Holiday, where we're doing volunteer services with our schools, when we're pushing in and doing those things, it's because the solutions have to be immediate. And one of the things that I think in South County, because this is true, I just saw in Marietta where they're having to hire more police officers because of the fights and things that are happening. These things happen everywhere. It's going to be how we respond. And we need to respond in a way that is rooted in love, but is also no nonsense. A lot of times people will get on here and say, schools need to do X, Y, and Z. And the question I always ask is, when is the last time you visited a school? When's the last time you've been in a school? When is the last time you've seen what our teachers are going through, what our administrators are going through, and what our kids are going through? And so I say this because I'm gonna have to go in and grab my children in a second, is that I want people to understand that I send my kids to South County schools and they will never go anywhere else. I send them there because they are loved, they are protected, and they are educated at a high level. I want people that before you criticize a school about what a school has not done, is actually go in there, be engaged. Sometimes the conversations aren't rosy and fuzzy and all love. Sometimes it is, why are these children fighting? Sometimes it's Ms. Miley telling me, this is what we're doing in response. Sometimes it's her having a town hall. So I think in our community, we really have to get to the point where we can address issues, but do it out of love and not be accusatory. And another thing I want to talk about is when we talk economic development, South County is special because we have kids who live in South Fulton who do not attend South Fulton schools. That is something that is not talked about enough. So when people will say, I had a small group meeting with a group of parents from Woodward. This was on last Friday. And the mom reached out to me. Her and about 6 other parents are considering bringing their kids back to their South Fulton schools. And she asked me, she said, why are some of the scores in South Fulton so dismal? And I said, I want to give you this analogy. You have 100 kids. If 20% of those kids are not in their home schools, you're going to see the effects of it just on a mathematical level, right? Because you're going to have to go through and you're going to have to account for those scores somewhere. So I want parents to know that all of our decisions can hurt or harm our schools. And so we just have to have those conversations and continue to have them. And sometimes they're hard and sometimes they don't feel good, but engaging in solutions is having those conversations and being okay with it. And my children are back, so I have to hop off.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to say that. Thank you, guys.
Now let me say this, and I have to say, I did invite Mr. Looney. I didn't get back with him, just to let you guys know. Let me say this. When we first moved down here in 2005, I reached out to Mr. Edwards through the chamber, and people was telling us to send my son to the north side. And so I never will forget that Bill said, and I'm gonna call him Bill because we have that relationship. Bill said, why would you send your child on the north side of school when he lived down here in the south side? If he's making those A's now, he will continue on making those A's. The best decision I could have ever made was to keep my son at Westlake. Great school, but again, parents have to get involved. It's not just the teachers, it's the parents. And from 2005 until 2009, I was at that school every day. I knew the principals, I knew the counselors every day. Dr. Adrian was there with me. We have to know the teachers, the principals, have a relationship with this. And back then, Dr. Adrian, we so quick to say what our kids won't do, and our kids will make a lot of us every time. They'll say, not my kid, but they will make a lie out of us every time. And I'm gonna say this, going back to Westlake in 2008, Mr. Edwards' magnet program. And I remember my son didn't want to have his pants belt on because people was making fun of him. So Miss Irvin, she did not allow you to come in that school like that. She set standards, but we got to call them out. We had community parents that wanted her out of there, these principals out of there, because they set standards. We as parents got to be held accountable also for our actions. Sometimes our kids do what they see at home. If Noah know that he don't supposed to wear his pants sagging, he know Daphne gonna get him.
Well, I don't buy saggy pants.
There you go. So the parents, we got to be held accountable. And then, like I say, the parents, not my child. I know one parent, the child had a gun. You could not tell this parent that their child had that gun until he got in trouble. So we got to be held accountable also and stop shifting the blame. Let me ask a question, Kimberly Dove. I'm gonna ask you this question. It has been taught about the school, Conley School. Could you tell us about that you didn't want it built? Could you give us a kind of feedback, you and Miss Dean, about Conley Elementary School?
Absolutely. So Conley Middle School was part of the SPLOST campaign 5. And when I joined the board, Conley Hills was on the SPLOST campaign to be replaced. And as you can imagine, during that time period, we had 3 superintendents as well. And so we spent a lot of time looking for land in the city of East Point. And it was very important to us that that school stayed in the city of East Point. And the city of East Point is very landlocked. We went through several iterations of looking for land and it did not happen. So the superintendent recommended a K-8 program to the community. And as a part of our process, anytime the superintendent brings a recommendation, he brings it to the board and we go out into the community to receive feedback based off of that recommendation. The superintendent recommended a K-8 for the replacement of Conley Hills. His recommendation was to take Paul D. West, add a K-5 onto one side of it and make modifications and renovations to that model. And based on the feedback from the community, I voted against that along with Ms. Dean. So with that process, so we voted that down. So now we're still back at a process of finding land. Land is still an issue in the city of East Point. It is landlocked. Again, you can't go further or no. Otherwise, the other options would be other things. So with that, the staff goes about, we give them approval to go looking for land again. And now we have not only a new superintendent, we have a new chief of operations. So when you have leadership that changes, it's important that leadership stays in place that is effective. So that leadership is no longer there. We have a new chief who is Noel Malouf. Noel went and found land that Fulton County already owns in the city of East Point. And now we're making a recommendation to build a beautiful K-5 right in that spot. Ironically, it's 2 miles from Asa Hilliard and it sits right behind Woodland Middle School. So I did what the community wanted, which was they did not want a K-8. And because it takes a while to find land, it took us a very long time to get to that point. The very good news is that I will be having a community meeting tomorrow at Conley Hills to begin that conversation again. So when the community say, we're not available and we're not there, this is another avenue. After every board meeting, each board member has a community meeting. And at my community meeting, maybe 10 to 20 people show up where we are going over the things that's on the agenda and items that the community wants to talk about.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are with Conley Hills. We will be replacing that and we'll be breaking ground on that in December of 2022.
Thank you. I'm gonna go with Dr. Pickett. Dr. Pickett, I know we talked about the male. Do you guys have a mentor program for just to school or other kids, males that want to be in it? Mentor? Do you have one?
So we actually are having a meeting on Wednesday because the principal at our school, the principal of our grammar side, our elementary side, saw the need to empower the young men in our school. So we're actually having a meeting with all the male instructors and leaders of the school on Wednesday to talk about what that male collaborative will look like, whether it will be, having how we'll train internally, but also how we will pull in other initiatives. I've actually, and I'm probably I don't want to age him too much, but I've actually been a product of some of the initiatives that Mr. Edwards has done in past. And so one of the things, which by the way, happy Founders Day to my Morehouse brother as well. But one of the things that I want us to do is to ensure that, again, it's been a conversation time and time again, we're only as good as our community, and our schools need our community leaders. And so one of the things that we're doing is wanting to look internally to see how can we first, before you bring anybody in-house, how are we as an intergroup want to work as a collaborative, and then start bringing key individuals in the community to help us. One of the things I'm definitely doing, we serve 4 areas. We serve Union City, College Park, East Point, as well as City of South Fulton. I need to make sure that I'm bringing in these elected officials and these leaders to saying, listen, our kids are in your cities, your areas. How can we be of assistance to you? And how can you be of assistance to us? You have to have a village. Again, that village concept and that village mindset is important. And so with that, that's going to be what we do. And I apologize that I'm going to have to run off of this. And because unfortunately, we're dealing with a fire alarm situation here. But that is very crucial. We have to make sure that we're including our village, our community, so that we can continue to have those initiatives. And so I hope that Mr. Edwards, you lend yourself to this very soon. You visit all the other schools. I hope I can bring you over to Rise Schools and get some stuff done with you as well. I'm in.
Thank you so much. We're going down to a 30-second closing remarks. What I'm going to do, the last show of the year that we have, I'm going to bring each one of you guys back, and we're going to do a report card and see if we have some changes. Because I know we can do it, Dr. Adrian. I know we can do it. But we got to find out a solution. I know Daphne's out there, and so and again, parents got to take ownership. I'm going to start with Daphne. Give your closing remarks.
My closing remarks are, as a very engaged, intelligent, active parent, a native of Atlanta, it is it's critical for parents, for us to hold the school board members accountable. They are elected by us if you chose to participate in the election. And, just to clarify something, when a parent sends an email and your address is in the to, we have emailed you and your email address is in the to option. It means that I'm addressing you as an elected official, as a board member. And if you choose not to respond to me, then that is what I have a sincere issue and problem with. I feel that when parents take the time to send an email, whether it's to Mrs. Miley, who's very responsive, I can't sing her praises enough, you all should respond. And I'm looking at emails going back to 2016 where I have yet to get a response. If we are saying know the problem as a parent, and I'm engaged, I would like to see cohesion at the top. Because the parents are actually right now, we're working from the bottom up. We're working with the principals, we're working with the teachers, we're working with everybody in the schools to try to, bring understanding and awareness as to what's going on with our children. But the people who hold the checkbook are the ones that we need the most assistance and help with, and that is from the school board.
Thank you. We down to like 2 minutes, so I'm gonna go to Bill.
Thank you so much. If I can say one thing, it's been enjoyable to talk with you guys. I just think, Ms. Chatman, like you said, let's come back and let's make some solutions to some of these real issues. And remember this: you can't eat the whole elephant at one time. We're gonna have to decide what is we're gonna do, how are we gonna get it done. So thank you very much for having me. I appreciate each one of you all. And once again, happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. I'm gonna go to Sandtown, Miss Miley. Thank you. Got a great school over there.
Thank you all so much. I just want to say that I think the right people are around the table. I love this conversation. It was great hearing from everyone and hearing the perspectives that we all have, because we're all walking in different shoes. And we're all prioritizing what seems to be the most important for what is right in front of us. So I just appreciated hearing from Mrs. Blackman, Dr. Adrian, of course, parent Ms. Jordan, Daphne Jordan. Parents, I do believe that our parents hold the key. We need the partnership, we need the engagement. But I just want to say, Mrs. Chatman, this is the right group around the table. And I would love to come back and talk solutions, because I think truly that's the road we need to be going in.
The next show is going to be the solution show.
Yes.
I'm going to go with Dr. Adrian, couple seconds.
I just want to say thank you for having me.
Thank
and
you.
I am willing and open to have any conversation and support any of you all at any level that I can. That's the value of working for yourself. I don't have to answer to other people, so I can help you and I can have those conversations that a lot of times other people shy away from.
Thank you. We're gonna get with Fulton County about some help too. Kim Duff.
Thank you for having me here. I like the opportunity to be able to share the role of the school board and want to make sure that the community knows that I am engaged. Some of the solutions and some of the programs that have been put in place recently have been because of my active engagement and listening to the community. So I look forward to us being able to continue the conversations. We're continuing them at the high schools that I represent as well. Banneker is coming up again, as well as with Tri-Cities and Creekside, Langston Hughes, and at Westlake. So thank you so much for having us here.
Miss Gail Dean.
Yes, Ms. Chapman, thank you so much for inviting me. I really do appreciate being a part of specifically this conversation. I think that we have been able to put out some information that may not have been known. And I definitely have, as one of us said, lifelong learner. I continue to learn every time I speak with the community. And I do hope to have some folks, as Ms. Dove said, we have a community meeting after our board workshop and before our board meeting every month. And mine is at 6:30 and it's a Teams meeting. And so I look forward to anyone coming to that. And we have a lot of questions and those questions get answered. So again, thank you for inviting me and I look forward to our follow-up meeting. Will it be December, Ms. Chapman? Or
I'll let you know. I'll let you know. I'm gonna look at the calendar, guys. I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you so much.
I want to thank everyone for taking the opportunity to come to the show and just talk about the concerns and issues. I'm going to leave this with you. This is our community. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go with Miss Blackman. I'm sorry, Miss Blackman. I don't see your name up there and I forgot you. There you go. Come on in. Give me your closing
It's okay.
remarks.
I just want to take away the issue of support, and that it's a continuous circle of the support that the teachers need, the community needs, the parents need, and we need to be there for each other as we try to help our students navigate through this, through the school system and get them ready for an untraditional world. So thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to have a voice, because a lot of teachers feel that they are not heard. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, producer just sent me a message. We're gonna do I'm gonna say May salute. Let's do May solutions. In May, I got somebody that's a Westlake student gonna be graduating out of Mercer Law School in May. So we're gonna do this in May. I want to thank you guys for coming today, and I'm gonna leave this with the parents. We want to shift the blame to the teachers, the administrator. But check this out. How many parents, and I know Daphne's involved, so Daphne, you ain't included in this. How many parents go to the school board meetings? How many? Dr. Adrian, back in the day when we were going to school board meeting, we always saw the same ones, and it was always Mr. Reggie Tatum, Bruce Moody,
Mm-hmm.
and it was probably about 5 or 6. Do you agree with me, Dr. Adrian? But we always want to shift the blame on the other folks. Parents got to be held accountable. I don't have kids in the school system, but I'm willing to do what I can. And I'm gonna tell you, I had got involved in a couple of schools and try to do my best. I'm not there just to go spend $100 on Krispy Kreme donuts and don't hear it back to you until you want some more donuts. This is our community, and most of our taxes go to the school board. So again, we're gonna have to come up with solutions. I'm gonna get with Daphne, with the gang and all the information on that, and we got to stop passing the buck. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Happy Valentine's. Go enjoy your husband, your booze, whoever. Just enjoy yourself today. I'm going to enjoy myself. Again, thank you guys so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Make today